Michelle Marie McGrath.
Welcome to today's episode of Unclassified Woman, and today I'm really happy to be talking to the amazing Flora Bowley. Flora is a painter, creative pioneer, gentle guide and author of 2 books, Brave Intuitive Painting and Creative Revolution, blending over 20 years of professional painting experience with her background as a yoga teacher, instructor, healer and lifelong seeker. Flora passionately believes creative expression is waiting to unfold within every person who is brave enough to trust, let go, play and explore. How good does that sound? Flora's soulful approach to the creative process has sparked a new holistic movement in the intuitive art world, empowering thousands of people to courageously pick up a paintbrush through her intimate in-person workshops, books and popular online courses. Flora lives with her partner Jonathan, his son and their dog Pearl in Portland. Her own vibrant collection of paintings can be found in galleries, shops and printed on unique products around the world. I'm also delighted to share that Flora has very generously offered listeners an amazing discount on her upcoming Creative Revolution e-course. So listen in and you can apply the coupon code on her store for the course at florabowley.com. Welcome, Flora. So happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
I've been a fan of your work for a long time and really looking forward to hearing about your creative journey and how you've come to be doing what you're doing today, because I know that you've been a painter for a long time, but it's not necessarily been a conventional path.
That is true. Pretty windy, in fact.
Well, they're all the best paths, aren't they, really? And so it seems like you've got quite an eclectic background and you're a natural adventurer and traveller. Do you feel that that's contributed to your ability and your openness to create, you know, what you've created in your life now with all your workshops and your courses?
Definitely. I think it's all related. I will, give a lot of credit to having parents that really encouraged me from a young age to follow my dreams and, that I could do anything I wanted. And they were really big world travelers. And so they exposed us to a lot of different cultures and things when I was growing up. And so I just have so much, gratitude for that experience. I know that's not everyone's experience growing up. And so I feel like I just, took that kind of belief system into both my business and also just how I create my paintings, even because it's kind of out of the box in terms of my approach. So I think it's all connected. It all comes from me, and so there's a lot of really interesting parallels between it all.
Yeah, and I noticed you say that you were actually rejected from some formal art training that you applied to, and that you feel that this was really a blessing in disguise.
It absolutely was. I went to college to get my undergraduate degree in painting, and then after that, I was just like all ready to go into the next phase of higher education to get my master's in fine arts. And so I applied to schools and I didn't get into any of them. And it was at the time, kind of devastating just because I thought, oh, well, now what do I do if the plan that I thought I was going to do isn't happening? What's next? But what ended up occurring is that I just decided, well, the thing I want to do most and what I was planning to do in school was to paint and to learn more about painting. So I really took that opportunity and that just kind of crossroads to commit myself even more to my own art making practice. And so by doing that, I feel like I really developed my own approach. I didn't have all those teachers or that kind of school community telling me how it's supposed to go. And so I just did my thing. And, years later, when I moved into teaching and sharing, I really looked back and realized like, wow, it really was a blessing in disguise that happened, and that I was kind of forced into just forging my own way, because my process, I feel like, is really authentic to me as a result.
Yeah, and it really is about, personal self-expression, isn't it? Often people can have quite a rigid and narrow perception of what it means to be creative, not always realizing that they are a creative being just by the fact that they exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, and this is not to discredit art school at all, but I do think there tends to be a lot of conceptualizing and thinking around what we're doing and why we're doing it in art school, which is totally valid. But it took me years to kind of unravel, even from my undergraduate degree, just to get to the place of realizing that so much of the purpose and the healing and the reason I actually am creating is sort of in the creative process itself. It's almost less about, what it looks like or what message of it is. It's the act of creating without a plan, which is really what my process is based around, is kind of going in open to what will happen. It's like there is so much positive, results that come on so many levels just from creating, and it took me a long time to get to that point of knowing that and understanding that was enough, that it didn't have to like have a big political message necessarily, or have this big conceptual idea of what I was going to create before I was creating it. In fact, that was, kind of getting in my way in terms of like letting it unfold naturally. So yeah, there's lots of ways to create, and I feel like people do it for all different reasons, and finding like what our personal reasons are and what works for us is a beautiful part of the journey.
It is. And it's so true what you say about, just getting out of your own way and allowing the process to unfold, because often we may have this fixed idea in our head of what we want something to look like, what we want the end result to be. And so often we can, have that inner critic stepping in and thinking, well, I'm not very good at this. And if it's not going to be perfect, what's the point? Instead of just thinking, well, actually the learning is really all in the process, and the awarenesses and the realizations that you may have during that, and about doing it for yourself.
Yeah, it's such an entirely different way of creating. I think for a lot of people, we were taught that we were supposed to have an idea in our head, like a still life, or whatever it is, like that you were moving towards that goal. Like that's a really traditional way of creating that I think a lot of us were brought up with. And so to remove that and to actually, in my workshops, I often say, like, if you are sitting there with an idea in your head, you're already getting in your own way of what, what's possible. Because it's like, I love to think about it this way. It's like, if you're fixed on one thing, like if you have it in your head and you're fixed on that, like you were saying, then nothing else is actually, you're not open to other things. Right. And so when you kind of let go of that one thing, then everything else opens up, like this huge infinite world of possibility. And so that's when all of the really exciting surprises and the unknown and like things you never could have even predicted, those things all get a chance to show up in that way of creating. And to me, that's just a lot more fun,
Yeah. And it is really, isn't it, about being open to so many possibilities that exist. Mm-hmm. And it's such a loaded topic, creativity. And like so many of us have got these like creative woundings and experiences that we've had in childhood, or where we've been, started having art classes at school when we're really young. And then often a lot of these blocks, I guess you could call it, can come in, or these judgments can come in towards ourselves when we start to be compared to each other at school, and we start to be graded. And maybe, this is the time when so many of us like make that sort of decision that, hey, I'm not very good at this, or, this is just not good enough. And they start to believe that their form of expression is just not it's just not worthy. So is this something that you come up against, with clients when you're doing your workshops, blocks from childhood or experiences that they've had?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like another thing that happens beyond just the different woundings of people telling us we're not good enough or all of those things is that there's this sort of time in life where people start to choose their careers, or they say, I'm going to go study this. I'm going to go into business, or I'm going to be a doctor, whatever it is. And it's like, I think at that time, unless you were someone like myself, where to me, art's always been the thing that I've done. So to me, I was like, well, I'm going to do something creative, but for a lot of people, that's not the case. And so then the whole world of creativity sort of gets shut down, because it's like, they're not going to be an artist with a capital A, professional artist, then there's no middle ground. There's nothing to do there. So they kind of block it out and go on their way. And so a lot of people that show up to my workshops are kind of, in some ways, like circling back to a passion that they had as a kid in a lot of cases, where they're like, I always used to love to make things. And then they went and, either they started having children, or they had the other job, or whatever got in the way of that. Then they realize at some point in their life that they really miss it. And so I love it when people come back, because it's like they're honoring that that's still a part of them, and that it just needs a little attention. It's like a muscle that you work out, like if you just haven't worked it out for a long time, it starts to get weaker. But all it really takes is that attention and showing up and working on it. And then all of a sudden, you can be right back in that groove, whatever that groove is for you.
Yeah, and one of the things that you say, which I really love, is I believe passionately in every human's ability to create, and I know down in my bones that creative expression is a crucial part of holistic well-being. And I really resonate with that, because I feel that creative process can be so healing, can't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, regardless of what it looks like, I think that's an important piece. It's like, regardless of what it looks like or what you're even doing, just letting yourself be, in a space where you're creating something out of nothing. And that could just be a doodle, it doesn't even have to be like a big fancy painting. It can just be, giving yourself that time to be playful, to be curious, to kind of just let whatever wants to come through, because I really do believe in that idea of like, there's this kind of greater creative force out there. And we as humans are really perfect vessels for it to flow through, right? We've got these amazing hands and these bodies, and we can let things come through us. And so that in and of itself is healing and empowering. And it's also a really fantastic and practical way to just practice ways of being that we're interested in inviting into our life more. So, for example, if you're someone who's wanting to let go more, like let go of control more in your life, practicing a creative process is an awesome way to just, you practice like that. That's the word I want to use. It's a place to practice letting go. It's a place to practice being brave, listening to your intuition, making decisions, if that's something that you're working on, and so it's kind of cool. I feel whatever it is that you're coming in with, it can serve you, and everyone's so different, but it works for everybody in different ways.
And so what do you say to people who are really closed off to the idea that they could create anything, and they just are very set in that, I'm just not creative, I can't do it. They just don't know where to start.
Yeah, I think I have a lot to say about that, so I'm kind of pausing here because I'm just like, where do I start? I think if I would say to people that are listening that might feel like, maybe they've heard themselves say, or they've had the thoughts of like, I'm not an artist, I'm not creative. If there's a part of you that is, even if it's like the tiniest flicker of desire, like this little part of you that is craving some of that, I would say to listen to that, because that's your soul's calling. That's your soul calling you into action, right? And so I think for different people, different things really work. For some people, painting might be perfect. Other people, drawing, just simple drawing might be better. Some people, it could come through in writing or dancing or poetry or, it's like, I think we all have these like different inclinations. I honestly feel like no matter what your instrument is, we're pulling from the same pool.
Yes.
Like lately I've been dabbling, I should say, in more music and writing and voice kinds of things. And it's like, I'm such a beginner with all of that, but I feel myself accessing the same exact place that I access when I'm painting. I just happen to have a lot more practice painting. And so I'm more confident in that area, but it's all this kind of mysterious pool of imagination and trust and intuition. It's alive and well in all of us. It be a little more buried because we haven't had it. We haven't been engaging in it in a really active way. So I just would say to everyone to trust that it's there and to find, whatever medium or instrument feels fun and interesting for them to play with. That might be, an instrument for someone. It might be a paintbrush for other people.
Yeah. And even, it could be somebody even that's like great at cooking, is a chef, or just somebody who's really good at thinking outside the box, is a creative thinker, like finding those different examples in their life of where they are creative, but they just hadn't perceived themselves in that way.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. That is such an important message. And that's something that I've been thinking a lot about the last year or so. I actually created a whole 7-week e-course called Creative Revolution. And the whole idea behind the course is about inviting more creativity into your daily life. And that definitely does not always look like painting a painting.
Yeah.
That's like, sure, that's one option. But how can you, step out your front door and go on a walk in the morning that is engaging your creativity?
Yeah.
I love, how can you cook a meal that feels like a creative offering? How can you have a conversation with someone that feels creative? I just love thinking about all of the ways we can go about it, because I honestly feel like we're in a time right now in the world where we need to think of new solutions, right? It's like a lot of things aren't working. It's pretty obvious. And so we need to think of new solutions. And that is exactly what you said in terms of just thinking outside the box, coming up with new ways of looking at things, connecting different dots in new ways. And so if we can be flexing those muscles, not just when we go to the painting studio, but when we actually are moving through life, then I think that's really important right now.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's like you say, it's just that thing of often widening your perspective on something. Maybe it is if you've got a problem or you've got a situation where you feel stuck, and it's just, well, how can I approach this from a different angle? And just letting go of our set ideas or judgments about something, whether it's a situation or how we see ourselves in a certain setting. And often even just things like you say when you go for a walk, but it could even be like if you're walking to the bus stop, can you walk a different way? Can you change your route up? Can you just, because again, it's all really good, like for your brain development as well, isn't it? And firing off those different neurons. It's just changing patterns and not being set in your routine so much.
Yeah, there's an exercise I love. That's something I work with personally and also share with my students, called intuitive wandering. That's what I call it. And it's a super simple idea, but it basically just means that, if you go on a walk or, even if you're on a bike or potentially in a car, if you take a moment every time you get to a place where you can make a decision about, do I go left, right, straight, back? There's a choice to be made. You take just a quick moment of closing your eyes, maybe taking a breath and checking with your body and your intuition, like that part of you that's kind of knows what you want to do. There's a pull there, but it's not coming from your logical mind. It's coming from a totally other wisdom center.
Yeah.
And so you kind of feel into, where am I being drawn? Where am I being pulled? And then go that way, allow yourself to, and this is something that you have to kind of carve out some space in your life for, right? Because if you're just trying to get to the grocery store, it might not be what you want to do. You end up across town. But I always do it when I walk my dog every day. And it's like practicing listening to my intuition, because the more I do that, the easier it is to hear it. And so,
and learn to trust yourself more.
Exactly. Because it's like not always operating from this logical mindset. It's like dropping into your body, into your intuition. And there's so much wisdom there. And I think if we practice it in times where the decision doesn't really matter, like it doesn't really matter if I go left or right on this walk, right? But the fact is that I practiced. And so when I do have a decision that comes my way in my life that is more important, I have better access to that part of myself. And painting, intuitive painting gives us that opportunity to practice over and over and over with every brush stroke we make. What color am I choosing? What am I doing with it? What kind of mark am I making? These choices can all come from our intuition. And what a great practice it is.
It is. And so on that then, Flora, do you ever feel creatively blocked at all? And is that something that happens for you very often or not? Because it makes it sound like you're so used to that being your way of life. And so I wonder then if you ever feel blocked.
There's plenty of times that I don't feel so inspired to go paint, I have to kind of make myself go, schedule it in, commit to it, like just have it be just like anything else I'm committing to in my life. Because what I have found over the years, and this is something that is so clear to me now, is that so much of my creative inspiration and flow happen as a result of engaging in the creative process. It doesn't happen when I'm like sitting around on my couch necessarily.
Yes.
If I get to the studio, or even if I get to I have a little table set up in my bedroom where I do smaller works of art. So if I get in a space and I have my supplies and I put some paint out and I start to move the colors around, even if I'm feeling totally uninspired and blocked, I know that it only takes a matter of time for some little spark to happen, And I don't even know if it's ever happened where I've gotten myself set up in painting and then like never found the spark. I think at some point I always get there. Just because I love color and I love all the possibilities with paint. And so the key for me is to not wait around for that inspiration to strike beforehand. It's like, just start.
Yeah.
I think it's like going to the gym, it's like, it's hard to get there, but once you're there, it's way easier than you imagine it might be in your mind.
It's so true that, isn't it? Often we make the mistake of feeling like we'll act on something when we feel inspired, whereas we may not feel inspired until we've actually started something. Yes.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And, for people that have been waiting to start something, waiting for that big moment of inspiration to happen, it's like you could be waiting for years, why waste all that time? It's like, just start, and it can be simple. That was one of the big things in my Creative Revolution e-course, is that I really wanted things to feel simple, like that. You could sit down, you could have 5 minutes and you could do an exercise, and it didn't involve all this fancy materials and things. It could just be really straightforward, like with a pen on paper. And so I came up with a bunch of really accessible things that just get people's kind of creative juices flowing.
Are there any people or specific practices, like who and what are your biggest inspirations?
Oh, well, that took me off guard there. I feel really lucky to surround myself with some really inspiring peers and friends that are all, we all do slightly different work, but I would say, versus like any kind of big famous person out there that I don't know, most of my real true life inspiration comes from my peer group.
Yeah.
So, Pixie Lighthorse is one of my dear friends. She does earth medicine work. My friend Lindsay Links is a jewelry artist and a painter. Kelly Ray Roberts is a good friend of mine, does a lot of different painting things. So, it's like we're always having these great conversations about the creative process, about business, creative business, and I think people that you can actually have those conversations with, for me, that's like gold,
Yeah, and they really understand like the processes and the experiences that you're having like with work, I guess, because you're sort of on a par in, even if, like you say, even if your work is different, there would be some similarities that you can draw on so that you understand each other.
Oh yeah, so many similarities. Most of us work with women. A lot of us work online, in an online kind of format. And so we're always just figuring it out as we go. I feel like that's the great puzzle of the internet,
Yes.
where everything's always changing and we're trying to, find the work-life balance within it all. And yeah, we cheer each other on for sure.
And I guess that's been a creative process in itself because, like you say, if you think about the process of just being on your own in front of a canvas, creating a painting, and then having like an in-person workshop where you may have people in front of you, that process of then turning that into something in an online format, that again is a creative process in itself with the internet and the development of technology that we have now, which is incredible that you can connect with these people all over the world. But still, I guess it still brings up different skills to be utilized and new things to learn.
Yeah, I've always approached my business as a creative pursuit.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that's made it really fun for the most part and really interesting. And I've never been that interested in these kind of like, here's a formula for a successful business. It's like no one's ever handed me like a step-by-step way to do it. I've just kind of, very similar to my painting process, it's like all about staying present and being open to what is working and to what is not working. That's one of my big painting philosophies, is to work with what's working.
Yeah.
To focus on what's working and like follow that thread. Another one of my painting philosophies is to make strong commitments while simultaneously staying open to change. And so that is such a little golden nugget for me because it really translates into my business, into my life. It's like you have to make choices. You have to move things forward, especially in business. We're always making choices. What am I going to do next? How am I going to deliver it? What are all the pieces of it? And then you try it. And if it works, great. Like you can keep going with that. If part of it works, you can amend it. But then sometimes there's things that just need to be changed. It's like you need to directions. And so I think because I've worked with my painting process in that way for so many years, I feel like I've practiced being flexible in that way because it really is about spontaneity and improv in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like in my business, there's definitely been moments where I'm like, okay, time to change gears. This isn't working for me. And just, that can be hard in the moment, but ultimately I trust that, listening to that is always the way to go.
And it is a constant evolution, isn't it, of ourselves and our businesses as an extension of that expression, I guess. And I loved reading about the story of your realizations when you taught your first painting workshop. Are you able to share how that unfolded and then how your brave, intuitive painting came into being?
Yeah, that was a really big turning point for me. I had worked as I always thought being a painter was like the dream job. Like, wow, if I could be a painter, that would be so amazing. And so for many, many years, I worked towards being a full-time painter. And I arrived there when I was about 30 and I was, barely making a living, but I was making a living just with my paintings. And I kind of hit this wall of realizing like, wow, something really feels missing here. I feel kind of isolated. I didn't honestly know what was missing. I just knew something was missing. And so long story short, talked to a lot of friends about this kind of conundrum I was in. And eventually somebody suggested, well, why don't you teach painting? So I was invited to teach at a retreat center, an art retreat, and I showed up. I'd never taught painting before, so this was kind of very new territory. But I had in the past taught yoga, and I, was really into poetry and music and nature and all these different things. So what I did was that I just brought all the parts of myself that were things that I've been studying and been interested in for years, kind of together into this workshop experience. So we started outside and we meditated and we did some yoga and we went on a nature walk and we did a little ceremony and all these things that you might not typically.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Not your typical painting workshop, but the reaction to it was so positive. People loved all the things I brought into it. And so it was it was just a really clear sort of knowing at that point that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to share these passions. I wanted to share this work with people. And so that was a huge turning point in my whole career. I went from being, just a painter making paintings and selling them to sharing the process, writing books about it, doing online and in-person workshops. And yeah, it was just a really good lesson in being open to, letting things come together naturally. Like I see a lot of people that they want to know what their offering is or like, right. Like they're like, what is my thing? And for me, it was so organic in that for many years, I just let myself study what I was interested in. I put myself through massage school and yoga school and traveled a lot and did all these things. And then all of a sudden they came together and it took me by surprise in so many ways, in the most beautiful way. And it really is, I believe, to this day, why what I'm doing has turned into a successful business. It's because it really did come from that just authentic, true place of who I am, And
it sounds like one of the biggest keys, like that I hear when you're speaking about that, is that to me, it just sounds like you've really learned to give yourself permission to express yourself in whichever way or format comes through you, and you just allow yourself to follow that creative urge, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, or whatever, and even if it's not a creative urge, I think just listening to whatever is beckoning us to in life. Like if that's a country that you've always been drawn to, or a person, or any hobby or interest. I think it's just like, this is like our soul telling us there's something there for us. And it might take us years to really know what it is.
But I think travel is a big piece in that, don't you? Because like I've traveled extensively as well, and I've lived in different countries, and I really do feel it broadens your perspective on so many things. And it really does allow you to be extremely open and less judgmental.
Yes, absolutely. Such a beautiful thing if you're able to travel.
Yeah, absolutely. To bring in that kind of inspiration from other cultures and places.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's your focus now for moving forward, Flora? What are you following at the moment? Any, like we were saying about allowing yourself to be led and be in that mystery and be curious and often, I suppose, be more in that childlike state in a way of like just seeing where things lead you. Is there anything that's really drawing you at the current time?
I feel like, I'm coming out of sort of a 7-year cycle of having been teaching my thing for about 7 years on my own. And what feels really interesting and inviting to me right now is collaboration with other people that are people that I really respect and want to, see what happens when my offering and their offering kind of commingle. And so I've got 3 collaborations in terms of in-person workshops that are happening right now with 3 different women, and they're all different, which is kind of the beauty.
Great.
Yeah, I'm really excited about those. It just feels, I feel energized around them. I feel like there's a lot of really great collaborative possibility. And I've already taught with each of them, and each time was just really wonderful on many levels. So that's kind of the new horizon. I'm definitely going to keep teaching my own thing as well. But yeah, I'm interested in joining forces with other amazing people.
Wonderful. And so, Flora, thank you so much for your time today. And are you able to share your website details of where people can find out more about your courses and, of course, your books as well?
Oh, sure. Thank you. Yeah, my website is florabowley.com, FLORABOWLEY.com. And that's definitely the hub of all the things. I've got my in-person workshops, my online courses, my books, products, all kinds of stuff. And lots of free videos on there too. If people just want to get a taste of the painting process and what I offer, there's lots of free goodies on the website.
And you've got a beautiful site with so much color and amazing photos and little videos, and it really does make you feel almost like you're in your studio with you.
Yay, that's good. Hear that.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all of your experience and your wisdom today.
Oh, you're welcome. It was really fun chatting with you. Appreciate it. I just want to thank everyone for listening, and I'd love to offer you an invitation to the Creative Revolution e-course that I was mentioning in the podcast. We're starting a brand new 7-week course on October 2nd, and if you use the coupon code unclassified woman, when you're checking out, you'll receive 30% off the course. So I would love to have any of you join me if you're looking to invite more creative ways of living and being into your life.
Wonderful.
Yay.
Thank you for listening to Unclassified Woman. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. For information on events and services, connect with Michelle at michellemariemcgrath.com.